Back to Journey to Way Truth Life, where we utilize the light of truth to be set free from the darkness of deception. I wanted to read an excerpt today, and I wanted to share with you some unaddressed facts that is key in order for us to understand the truth of how America and many other parts of the world transition from a free republic democracy to having the civil rights, civil liberties, constitutional and innate liberties abased. And it reads, U.S. and NATO forces invaded Afghanistan more than 17 years ago in October 2001. It has been a continuous war marked by U.S. military occupations. The justification is counterterrorism. We're going to find out if it's really just. Continuing, Afghanistan is defined as a state sponsor of terrorism, allegedly responsible for attacking America on September 11, 2001. The war on Afghanistan continues to be heralded as a war of retribution in response to 9/11 attacks. U.S. troops are still present and deployed in Afghanistan. The legal argument used by Washington and NATO to invade and occupy Afghanistan under the doctrine of collective security, that's one of those revisionism term, and you have to study revisionism to know the more esoteric meaning. Basically, is a fancy way of saying one world order or new world order, so to speak. Was that the September 11, 2001 attacks constituted an undeclared armed attack from aboard by an unnamed foreign power, namely Afghanistan. Yet there were no Afghan fighter planes in the skies of New York on the morning of September 11, 2001. Continuing, under the Afghan-U.S. security pact established under Obama's Asian pivot, Washington and its NATO partners have established a permanent military presence in Afghanistan with military facilities located within proximity of China's western frontier. The pact was intended to allow the U.S. to maintain their 9 permanent military bases strategically located on the borders of China, Pakistan, Iran, as well as Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan. And if you notice, there have been a major increase in business from those particular locations here in the United States. In recent developments, President Trump, in his February 28, 2017 address to the joint session of Congress, vowed to demolish and destroy terrorist groups in Syria and Iraq, as well as Afghanistan, under a fake counterterrorism mandate. And we know about the false flags and so forth. What we want to find out is why. According to Foreign Affairs, there are more U.S. military forces deployed there, Afghanistan, than to any other active combatant zone. And their mandate is to go after the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and ISIS, which is supported covertly by U.S. intelligence. It's funny how every time they've ever caught ISIS, they had U.S. arms. Continuing, there is both a geopolitical as well as an economical agenda in Afghanistan, requiring the permanent presence of U.S. troops. In addition to its vast mineral and gas resources, Afghanistan produces more than 90% of the world's supply in opium, which is used to produce grade 4 heroin. U.S. military bases in Afghanistan are also intent upon protecting the multi-billion narcotic trade. Narcotics at present constitutes the centerpiece of Afghan's export economy, the heroin trade, and we know that the opioid heroin epidemic wasn't a problem in the U.S. until after 9/11. So we want to figure out how and why. The heroin trade is stated at the outside of the Soviet-Afghan War in 1979 and protected by the CIA generate cash earnings in Western markets in excess of $2 billion a year. So that's the why. $2 billion a year. The highest concentration of NATO servicemen in Afghanistan is being accompanied with the highest concentration of opium poppy. The situation causes doubts about the anti-terrorism mission and leads to the conclusion about catastrophic consequences of the 8-year stay of coalition forces in Afghanistan. Russia's Federal Drug Control Services head Victor Nov, January 2010. So that's what Russia public services had to say about that. Their public relations personnel made this statement. We're going to continue. In 2001, bombing and invasion of Afghanistan have been presented to the world public opinion as a just war. A war directed against the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. A war to eliminate Islamic terrorism and instate Western-style democracy. So while they're trying to say they're instating Western-style democracy elsewhere, those of us on these watch target list have had our civil rights, civil liberties, constitutional, and human rights completely abolished. The economic divisions of the global war on terrorism, GWOT, are rarely mentioned. The post 9/11 counterterrorism campaign has served to obfuscate the real objective of the U.S. NATO war. The war on Afghanistan is part of a profit-driven agenda. So we know that the word of truth have clearly stated that the love of money or profit is the root of all evil. So the war on Afghanistan is part of a profit-driven agenda. So why would they knock down 3 buildings in New York City in demolition style? Is it profitable? That's a question that you must conclude based on the facts, and I'm giving it to you right now. A war of economic conquest and plunder, a resource war. While Afghanistan is acknowledged as a strategic hub in Central Asia bordering on the former Soviet Union, China, and Iran, at the crossroads of pipeline routes and major oil and gas reserves. And we know that wherever oil is, U.S. troops will be there. Its huge mineral wealth, as well as its untapped natural gas reserves, have remained until June 2010 totally unknown to American public. So they didn't even tell the American public about all these assets that are extremely profitable and the billions and trillions of dollars. According to a joint report by the Pentagon, the U.S. Geographical Survey, USGS, and USAID, Afghanistan is now said to possess previously unknown and untapped mineral reserves, estimated authoritatively to be the order of $1 trillion. This is the New York Times. U.S. identifies vast mineral riches in Afghanistan. NewYorkTimes.com, June 14, 2010. See also BBC, 14th of June, 2010. The previously unknown deposit include huge veins of iron, copper, cobalt, gold, critical industrial minerals like lithium. Lithium is used for making phones, as well as it's profitable for the pharmaceutical industries. So that's why a lot of you are being hit with D.E.Ws, or directed energy weapons, displaying abnormal cognitive responses, because the pharmaceutical industry